What's up guys, Nate Spear here, back at the YouTube game. So those that don't know, I'm just finishing up my off season. We're getting ready for the New York Pro, first on deck. So that's about 15 weeks out this weekend. Today's Friday, so just about 15 weeks exact. Sorry, we got a friend down here. So yeah, now we're trying to ramp up the YouTube, ramp up the training. For those that haven't been following along on Instagram and that kind of stuff, I probably put on about, I would guess, 5 or 7 pounds of lean tissue for this season. So I'm pretty excited. Last year I was about 242 on stage at Boston, really good condition. And this year I'm guessing I should be at about 250 on stage. So finally climbing up to that like sort of pro size, I think. I'm getting there a little bit. Probably got a couple more years to sort of really fill it out 100%, but definitely really close now and should be a pretty good season for me. So now today we're just gonna highlight some hamstring training. Right now my training split is like this. It's 3 on, 1 off, 3 on, 1 off. So it goes something like quads, chest, arms, back, and then day off, and then hams with a little bit of quads, which is today, and then we do delts, arms, and then back again, but more like lat emphasis, squeeze, contract, that kind of stuff, get the blood in there, whereas the other day is more of a heavy rowing time of day, and then a day off. And then at this point, I have no cardio in, you know, food's really high, my macros are about 400 protein, 750 grams of carbs, and then about 80 grams of fats. So food is still really high, but I am getting like tighter without any changes so far. So we'll see how that keeps going on. And if you guys follow along and subscribe on the YouTube channel, you know what I mean, we're gonna post some like behind the scenes posing, that kind of stuff, where I won't really post on my other socials, to give you guys sort of like a little bit more of an in-depth look, a little more intimate look on this side of things through the YouTube channel. So follow along, and we'll see you at the end of the 15 weeks at New York Pro. So first thing we started with was a seated ham curl. This machine is like the range of motion stops a little short on this one, so we did it one-legged, which I really like. It just seems like a better isolation as far as like that one leg at a time, and just going like really slow, really squeezing hard, and like feeling that stretch, letting the weight take on the negative. So a lot of stuff, I'm really a big believer in that, but especially hamstrings, not going too heavy and just feeling the load, feeling the stretch, and really squeezing the crap out of that hamstring. And then as you'll see, we did a rest pause set. So we did 1 warm-up set, 2 working sets for about 10 reps a side. And then we did a rest pause at the end where we went up the weight 1 more. So like normally we wouldn't have been able to do that for 10, but we did it for 4 reps. And then we rested for 10 seconds, 4 reps, 10 seconds, 4 reps, 10 seconds, 4 reps. So a total of 12 reps, but at a heavier weight. We were allowed to do that because that rest pause set. But at the end, my hamstring was so full of blood. So I knew that was a success pretty much, is how I gauged that. So it was a really good start, that hamstring day. Now everything is like nice and warm, blood, and then we'll move on to the next movement. The second movement for hamstrings was dumbbell RDLs. So I went a little heavy, but I mean I could have went heavier, but the problem is with those, I find there's a happy medium with feeling the isolation, the stretch on the hamstrings, feeling it pull on the hamstrings. So sometimes you go too heavy and you start feeling that pull and the tightness in the hamstrings that you want in an RDL. So for me, it's not necessarily progressive overload, but I'm really going for that stretch, that feel of that hamstring like pulling out of its skin is sort of what I'm going for. Really nice range of motion, like almost touching the floor with the dumbbells. As you watch, you'll see my form, especially for a bigger guy, you know, I'm still driving my hips back and I'm going straight down. So to really get that glute and hamstring activation, instead of just dropping down, I'm more moving with my hips, right? So more hips, start, back, like that. And then also, quick plug, HD Muscle. So I got a lot of new clothes out. This is a nice shirt. It's really thick Champion. Champion. And then like the back. And then these shorts, balling, you know. HD. So you got to check that stuff out. And if you go on there, you know, support me, use code NastyNate, and save a little bit and help your favorite bodybuilder. So exercise number 3 was a lying ham curl. Actually, this one's really nice. It's pretty rare to find, but over here at Reality Training, we're pretty blessed to have a lot of hand pick stuff. So we have a flex, old school fitness lying ham curl, which are really nice, really good contraction. Those can be hit or miss, you know. Some you don't really feel so well, some you do. So, you know, it depends sort of luck of the draw of your gym, right? But that one's really nice. So we did like 2 heavy sets, and then we did a drop set, like 3-time drop set. So with that, I tried to, if you see, I start cheating a little bit at the end, but I try to keep my chest up so that way my glutes don't take over. So a lot of people on the lying hamstring curl, you know, they're lying down and their butt's going like this. So they're losing that hamstring contraction. So by going like this and bringing my chest up, now it's driving my glutes down, my hips down. So that way the load is more on the hamstring. So you're gonna feel more on the hamstring. So like I said earlier, with hamstrings, you really want to make sure you're connected to that muscle, you're feeling it and isolating that, just the hamstring, because a lot of people with RDLs, lying hamstring curls, they're using way too much momentum, way too much glute, even some upper body, you know. So you really want to be controlled and isolate that muscle, so you're working that muscle only and not like glutes and, you know, lower back, that kind of stuff. I think you're just getting way more benefit, especially out of the hamstring muscle, whereas some other muscle groups, you get a little bit of, you can get away with like the English, the body English a little bit more. But hamstrings, I find you really want to just isolate and really just get a crazy blood in there, really good pump, really good stretch, and you should really be feeling it after you train them. You know, that's a really good indicator. If they're not sore and feel really tight, you know, you might want to go back to the drawing board. But we'll see you at the next exercise. The next exercise, exercise number 4, was the adductor machine, excuse me. So I do this actually twice a week, so I'll do it my quad day, and then I'll do it my hamstring day. I don't think adductors are highly underrated. A lot of people started covering them more, I feel like, in the last like couple years, but adductor shows through in 360 degree in all your shots. So your front shot, it's really gonna fill in that gap in the center. And the longer you can get that adductor to touch, the more impressive it's gonna be, and your legs are gonna look that much thicker. And then when you turn to the side, you have that adductor to push off of and that side hamstring hang. So it's not necessarily just the hamstring, but you're using that adductor. The more meat you have, the more you're gonna push off of it on your other leg. And then the more sweep you're gonna get on the hamstring by having bigger adductors. And then also your back shot, right? So a lot of guys you'll see, they have a great back, but then they have sticks for hamstrings. So it's not necessarily the hamstrings, but the adductor too is a big part of that region. And you can grow a lot of meat on that adductor, whereas hamstrings, some guys are only gonna get them so thick and so wide. So where your quad sweep comes into play, and then your adductor comes into play, is really gonna help you in that back shot, the thickness of your leg. Whereas if you're just concentrating solely on hamstrings, then you're not gonna get as nearly as much mass out of the lower half of your back shot, right? So adductor, huge importance, and you gotta train them hard. A lot of people will train them like calves, which you have to train hard too, but a lot of people don't give them quite as much intensity because they might see it as a girl machine or as an easy isolation machine. But for me, so you might see, but what I do for this to make it even harder is I really like this combo. I do 20 reps, and what I do is I go 5 reps, and then I iso hold for 5 seconds, and then do 5 reps, iso hold for 5 seconds, and then keep going until I get to 20 reps. So what that's gonna do is just drive that extra blood in there on those holds and those pauses. Just because you get to a certain point on the adductor machine where a lot of us can do the whole stack. So I'm doing the whole stack. So to emphasize to get more to that load, that's why I'm doing the iso holds. You know, so some people might be at a gym, a smaller gym where they don't have as much weight, or some of their machines might be lighter, they're doing whole stacks, slow it down, throw in some iso holds, throw in some pauses, throw in some stretches, you know, that kind of stuff is so great to help break down the muscle and to help growth, you know. So it's not always just one way. There's plenty of ways to build a muscle, okay? So next exercise, we moved on to quads. So for the hamstring day, we're only doing 2 exercises for quads. So we don't really want to like kill them. We want them to recover enough in time for the big quad day coming up. Here, we're not going to necessarily push maximum poundage, maximum strength. My goal really here is to get the quads nice and pumped full of blood. So the first movement, we did extensions. We did just a couple of warm-up sets, and then 1 heavy set for like 15 reps. I usually stay between 15 and 20 reps on these to save the knee and the joint. And then the last one, we did a cluster set. So we kept that heavy weight. We did 10 reps with 10-second rest, 10 more reps with 10-second rest, and then 10 more reps. So what that's really is just driving the blood in there, helping you go past failure. So now after that, my quads are super pumped. And then when we move on to the next movement, the knees are nice and warm. All that front is nice and warm. And the reason why I do that too is my quads are a big weakness. And they're still coming along, but they made a ton of progress, and hitting them twice a week has really helped me. And also keeping my range of motion really good on the quad, like on squats, you know, hack squats, leg press, really getting nice and deep. You know, I find when you go really deep on those kind of movements, it's really good. That's the only way I find you're gonna build the outer quad sweep. So a lot of guys want better quad sweep, they go more narrow, but I find it's not necessarily the stance, in my opinion, it's more the depth. So if you can go much deeper and keep that same poundage, it's obviously gonna be harder, more humbling, because the range of motion is much greater. And you're also sitting in that hole a little bit deeper. But I find if you're having trouble bringing up your quads, one, I would go deeper on your range of motion, and don't be scared to lighten the weight, and then hitting them more frequency. So now I start hitting them like twice a week. So before I do quads and hamstrings, no quads on the hamstring day. Now I throw some quads on that hamstring day. So it keeps that fullness until I get the next quad day. And like I said, I'm not training them too much where they're still recovered by the time I get to that big quad day. And also a big thing that helped was I put my rest days before my quad and my hamstring day. So like yesterday I rested all day. So when I came in here, you know, I'm nice and recovered, because obviously we know legs are the hardest to build. Also they take the most stamina and recovery. So by having that rest day, you know, I'm ready to go full of energy. So I have an optimal, you know, leg day. All right, so the next movement that we finished on was the pendulum squat. So with this one, it's actually really nice. It's my favorite, it's Paramount. So there's a couple different ones. There's Atlantis, Arsenal. This one is like honestly the hardest one. It's just sort of, the gravity sort of pulls you in, so it's really nice, and it gets you really deep as far as the range of motion. So I really like that. And like I said before, I didn't really go crazy heavy on it because I want my legs to recover by my next quad workout. So I found if I do, you know, 3 plates and a quarter, and try to stay between 10 and 12 reps, you know, I get a really nasty pump to finish off that hamstring day. And then, so in like 4 days, I'll have my quads. So everything will be fully recovered. I'll get that rest day before and set up really nice. So that's the main thing. You want to manage your recovery too. And as you grow and your physique changes, your recovery demands are going to change too. So the stronger you get, the better mind-muscle connection you get is huge. So that means as you become better and better and better, you're better and more proficient at taxing that and aiming for that muscle group. So your recovery might need more recovery as far as that goes, because you're actually getting more out of the weight now. Whereas maybe when you're younger, you're just clanging and banging, not much contraction, not much, you know, feeling it, which is fine, because when you start out, you just sort of got to really push the heavy weight, eat a lot of food, just do the basics, you know, and then you sort of progress. With that said, we did 1 warm-up set, two working sets, and then the second one I tried to go to 12 reps. So, and what I tried to do too is, here's what I was talking about as far as making the exercises harder. So that last one, I did 12 reps non-stop piston motion. So up, down, up, down, up, down, all the way to 12. So instead of taking rest in between, catching my breath, what it's doing is it's sort of creating more tension on that muscle the whole time. So it's a constant tension. You're not locking at the top and getting in 3 seconds of breath and doing that 3 or 4 times in between the set. So it actually makes it a little bit harder, and I find it's a better pump, better contraction that way. So that's sort of what we finished on that hamstring day. All right, so thanks for tagging along today, guys. First of hopefully many YouTube videos for this series of Road to New York Pro, whatever you want to call it. It's not my pro debut, but it really sort of feels like it, because I did Boston last year as my pro debut, but I just came off for nationals. Didn't really have an off season, so still had, in my mind, an amateur-ish physique. So now I had a nice long off season, about a full year, you know, to really pack on some quality muscle and hopefully, you know, climb up the ranks slowly but surely, just like I did as an amateur. You know, that's the main thing. You know, you got to focus on yourself. There's always going to be guys with better genetics than you. Doesn't mean you can't beat them. It doesn't mean you can't outlast them, right? So a lot of guys I competed when I was younger, they aren't even bodybuilding anymore. So you got to stay in your own lane. You know, concentrate on yourself, because you could be concentrated on the best guy in the area, maybe locally or amateur, whatever. But 2 years you could stop bodybuilding. So you're all focused on this guy, and then it might deter you. You know, but in the grand scheme of things, you know, it might not even matter. So, you know, it's really important, especially with Instagram, social media. You know, people always look best on the social medias and stuff like that. So it's really just about putting yourself in your own lane, working as hard as you can, and always, my thing was always, I want to make improvements every year. So every year I step on stage, my main goal is to improve, being a different physique, so people can say, wow, he looks much improved. That's my main goal, honestly. And that's how I've gotten to where I've gotten at. So not necessarily chasing anyone or, you know, following someone else's thing. It's just, how can I get better for next year? You know, and improve my physique drastically enough where visually people can see it and say, wow, that's a big change. Because we've all seen the people that say, hey, I put on 20 pounds of muscle, I made a big change. But then you look at the pictures and you might be like, huh, you really? Like, you have to really sort of think about it. You know, that's my goal, is for them not to think about it and say, wow, no doubt about it in my mind, that guy made a lot of changes from last year. And that's what I could keep doing. And that's like staying in your own, like I said. You know, a lot of guys, they excel very fast. You know, I've just been slowly chipping away, you know. And it's all about, like I said, playing your own game. So thanks for tagging along, and hopefully you guys subscribe. Check out more content, go on my social media, Instagram at Nate Spear. Also still taking on new clients, if you guys want to check that out. Check out my Instagram. And then also, like I said, check out some of the HE products, really good stuff. You know, we just signed Nick Walker over there, so a lot of big things are going to be happening for sure. And if you guys keep following along, you know, I'm going to start putting physique updates out at the end of these videos. So maybe next week, 14 weeks out, we'll give a little update. I'm not trying to put too much on my social media until I get a little bit better looking, like, you know, around 6-5 weeks out and stuff like that. But on here, I'll be a little bit more transparent and, you know, show you guys what I really look like. So I don't think I look amazing, but my physique really changes and forms and molds as I get leaner. My waist gets tighter, I get more pop, and I actually start looking bigger as I get leaner. So I try not to post too much as far as, you know, 14 weeks out to like 8 weeks out, whatever. But like I said, here, we're gonna be a little more transparent, give you guys a little bit more detail and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully you guys subscribe, follow along, and we'll see you for the next one.